Welcome to Stillspeakpod. So I did not do a video last night or the night prior for different reasons, and I'm here now. And the last we spoke, it was about Kathleen Moore's boyfriend, Colin Knapp, being arrested for second-degree murder in the disappearance of Kathleen. And at that time, police did a press conference that day, and they said that they had taken a dumpster from Colin's job and dumped it out at a landfill. And when they were searching through the items, they came across an article of clothing that had a lot of blood on it. They sent it off to the lab. They found out that it was Kathleen Moore's blood, and that it was enough blood for them to believe she was no longer alive. And they made a plea to the public for people to help them find her. Because at that time, Colin was refusing to speak anymore. He did not give a confession, would not give up her body, took the fifth, and asked for a lawyer. He also went before a judge and was denied bond. So at that time, I was really concerned because I knew that a lot of friends and coworkers were out doing searches for her, and maybe some family members, I'm not sure 100%. And my concern was, losing somebody to murder is horrific. You don't also want to be the one to find the body. That's really traumatizing. And so my hope was that Colin would give up the location of her body to law enforcement and allow law enforcement to go and get the body so that they did not have to stumble upon and find her. Well, it seems that someone in the public was out behind Colin's home on Carmel Drive or Avenue, I forget the exact thing, but it's on Carmel, and about 50 yards from his home, her remains were located, and she was under thick brush. A big, huge thank you to that person, whoever it was. I'm sure her family is very grateful for you finding her. Police said that this area was searched by drones and dogs, etc., but they came up with nothing. But she was out there. And he explained that it can be all different, things, elements and whatnot. And in addition, she was under thick brush. And the way it was kind of explained was kind of like she was deliberately covered up with this brush. So I would imagine maybe some leaves or whatnot that's back there. They really made sure that she was covered. I gotta say, I love dumb criminals. I'm sorry, but this is dumb. 50 yards behind your home? 50 yards behind your home. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? He didn't even try to hide his crime, even though she was in thick brush. 50 yards from your home. I mean, were you trying to make it seem like somebody in your neighborhood, like a house or two down, killed and left her there? 50 yards? And we know he left at some point and goes to his job telling the police that he went there to do a meat inventory at 1:30 in the morning. And we find out a lot of information about what he dumped into the dumpster, which we're going to talk about in a moment. And you would think, you dumped all that other stuff in the dumpster. You didn't think to bring her along, too? I mean, I'm grateful. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful he didn't, okay? But I just 50 yards? Really? Okay. But this is good. This is good news as far as her being found. She can be laid to rest properly. And it's further evidence connecting to Colin because give me a break. Who else put her there 50 yards away from your home? 50 yards. I know I keep saying it, but that's nothing. This 50 yards, though, tells me that this was the heat of the moment type of situation. Because, when you kill someone, you're obviously not being rational. You go into a state of irrational. And then panic and shock. And then basically survival mode, right? You go into like, oh my God, what did they do? What am I going to do? Where am I going to put her? Blah, 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 blah. And your brain's going 1,000 miles a minute and you can't think clearly. And then you start making mistakes and you make dumb decisions, like putting her body 50 yards from your home. You can always tell the difference between a planned and a spur of the moment, heat of the moment type of situation. And this 50 yards away from his home definitely tells me that something got completely out of control, and then he just did not know what to do, and he just started being erratic and just doing ridiculous, dumb things. And what's crazy is that, so she goes missing, okay, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, what's today? Okay, so today's Thursday. Okay, so 2 days ago, not Wednesday, not Tuesday, it was Monday, okay, that they arrested him. So it was a week, okay? It was like a week and a day since she had been missing. And that whole week, he was home. He was home with her 50 yards away in the back of his house. I think they said it was like to the east. 50 yards to the east. What? And so you think, like, why didn't you think of, like, getting the body, removing the body, and then transporting the body once you knew that she had been reported missing? But then I thought about it and I was like, you know why he probably didn't do that? Probably because he knew he was immediately under police's eye, so to speak, and he didn't want to draw any attention to himself coming and going from the house, especially not with something that's large enough to put a body. I'm not even gonna lie here. This is totally my transparent thoughts. But when the police stood up at the podium and said that he went to his restaurant to do a meat inventory at 1:30 a.m., my true crime mind immediately went to, oh my God, did he dismember her? Like, that was my initial thought, because I'm like, meat, restaurant, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. And so I was like, oh God, I really, really hope that's not the case. But now it appears that he never took her to the restaurant. He disposed of her body and then went to the restaurant. At least that's how it seems. So documents came out, and it's basically, the documents that detectives use to present to a judge to say, hey, this is the evidence we have. We want to arrest this person. Can we? And then the judge signs off on it. You don't have to do that with every arrest, but sometimes in murder cases, you want to, be sure that you're charging the person appropriately and arresting them. Now, the prosecutor is the one that officially charges down the line, and right now his charges are second-degree murder, and that's the only one. That most likely will be upgraded. That's what usually happens. They might add other charges, and we have to see what happens. Specifically, we may see something with disposing of the body. Then, depending on the cause of death, which we still don't know yet, I thought it would come out today, because it usually does take 48 hours. And she was found Tuesday. It's now Thursday. We didn't hear anything. But they usually, it depends. It varies from city to city and coroner to coroner. So maybe it's the next day or so. But that cause of death will aid them in deciding the best charges against Colin. One of the biggest misconceptions is people hear first-degree murder and they automatically put it with the word premeditated. And with premeditated, they automatically think planned murder. Like somebody the day prior or hours prior decided, I'm going to kill this person, this is how I'm going to kill them, and this is what I'm going to do afterwards. That's actually not the case. First degree, the whole thing with that is intent. So, for example, in the Gabby Petito case, she was strangled. Strangulation takes 3 to 5 minutes. And in that 3 to 5 minutes, which doesn't seem like a long time, but when you're strangling somebody, it's a pretty long time. That shows intent because you had time to stop and you didn't. You followed through that entire time. So it's not specifically that somebody planned it, it's that somebody intended to kill that person, basically. I saw a prosecutor explain it one time in the easiest way possible, and he basically described it as you're coming up on a light, it's about to turn red. You know it's about to turn red, right, because of the yellow light. And if you take that 1 to 2 seconds to consider running that light, and then you run the light, and it's now red, that's intent. Because you thought about it, and you had time to stop, and you didn't. Now, that can get kind of funky, in my opinion, because in certain circumstances, I think a fit of rage, something of the sort, you kind of, your mind isn't there, right? You kind of lost your mind. So to make a decision, this is what I'm saying, it can kind of get sticky, in my opinion. But, these are the laws and these are the charges and it is what it is. But I think that in certain circumstances and cases, those charges can get a little, sticky, in my opinion, at least. And I want to be respectful to her family, but one of her siblings wrote me and told me that I don't need to be walking on eggshells, that they don't care about people talking about the case, right? They care about some other things that are happening, which are just wrong and horrible, like people making it about race, which I don't even know how the hell race has anything to do with this case at all, or why race has to do with anything, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. But, for example, let's say they were fighting, let's say he was, hitting her or beating on her, and let's say then he left the room, and instead of leaving the room to go calm down or leaving the house, he goes to the kitchen, grabs a knife, and then goes back into the room and, Well, that's intent, because you had time to stop, you had time to think about it, you had time to make a different decision. You could have avoided it. You could have called the police and had the police remove her from the home. You could have left the home. You could have gone for a walk. You could have made her leave. You didn't do any of that. What stuck out to me was that they identified her through tattoos. And when the report came out that they found a body, they said it was a decomposed body, which, if you know the decomposition process, that makes sense because she had been dead for about a week because she was reported missing the weekend prior. But even though she would have been in the decomposition stages, it's still a little strange to me that they needed to identify her through tattoos, which does make me wonder the condition of her body and what actually happened to her and what the cause of death was. Because what I've seen in other cases is that The body is in pretty bad shape, minus decomposition, when they have to identify by tattoos. She had long, beautiful hair that would have been unmistakable in identifying her. So this is why it kind of makes me a little sick to my stomach, because I'm like, goodness, how bad of a condition was she in? This poor girl. Nobody deserves this. My God. But we have to wait for that cause of death. So now let's talk about some of the things that were mentioned in this paperwork in order to arrest Colin, because it's rather interesting. Regarding her cell phone, so we talked about a homeless man finding her cell phone in a dumpster at the Walgreens, and this Walgreens is located near a 7-Eleven. And according to police, Colin stopped at 7-Eleven before going home that night and got cigarettes. They looked at surveillance camera to see if she was in the car, but they couldn't really tell. Her being found behind his home tells me she was in the car at that time and something happened after that. So anyways, her phone was found in this dumpster by this homeless man. And this is what actually happened. One of the friends was calling her phone on the 30th. And at one point, a man answered the phone. And he said that the cell phone, was inside the dumpster. And the woman on the phone told him, this phone is my friend's phone, and she has been filed as missing. So even though he took the phone and headed down the road with it, as soon as he heard that this phone was belonging to a person who was missing, he went back to the Walgreens and gave it to management. Now, I can't really blame the homeless man for trying to take this phone, right? Because he can go pawn it and get some money that he probably needs. But I commend him that when he found out that this was a missing person's phone, he did the right thing and put it into the Walgreens management. Now, at the same time, he was probably concerned, like, I didn't do anything to this girl. I don't want this freaking phone. I'm going to give it to somebody, right? Because he doesn't want to be implicated because he's the one that found the phone. And I said in my last video that it didn't sound to me like they actually had any surveillance footage from this dumpster to see who it was who put the phone in the dumpster. And I was right. According to this, there are no cameras that face this dumpster at Walgreens. This is really sad because it talks about Kathleen's roommate. His last text with her was on the 28th at 10:11 p.m. And that in the text messages, she wrote that she was being accused of things I'm not, and then mentioned that she wished she can find a nice guy to be with. How heartbreaking is this? Because less than maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, she was deceased. Apparently, Kathleen was very active on social media, and this is where I tell you to pay attention to your friends. Even the people that you made friends with just online, pay attention to their activity. And I do, because what will happen with Facebook specifically is you don't have interaction with somebody, you start to see less of their post. And there's been so many times that like a week or two will go by and I'll be like, I haven't seen so-and-so's post in a long time. Did they unfriend me? And I'll go and look and we're still friends. It's just that because we haven't interacted, I'm not seeing the post. But I definitely eventually realize their presence is not on my news feed, right? And I always go and check because I'm like, wait a minute, I haven't seen any posts from her. When police do these missing person cases, The first thing they want is patterns of behavior. So they'll talk to as many family members and friends and coworkers to get that person's patterns of behavior. So they'll be like, is this usual of them? Have they disappeared before? Do they do something specific every single day and they're not doing it now? I know we all have our own lives and we're so busy. Trust me, I have a million things I do a day. I'm not even kidding. And sometimes, we're so wrapped up in our own lives, we miss things about people we care about. And so I'm just saying, be more alert, be more aware of the people you care about and what their patterns are, so that if you notice something totally out of character for that person, you know what to do. If you watched my other videos about Kathleen Moore, we talked about how he had told the person who reported her missing about the Uber, and how she had gotten an Uber and that she got into a car with some guy that he didn't know because he's not good with names. I paused so I can pull up the exact words from the friend who reported her missing. She had commented on my video, and she said that I need people to realize that he didn't say she got into an Uber. I was in contact with Colin on Monday. As soon as I found out she was with an ex on Sunday night, I reached out to him for answers. He got back to me and he told me that she got into a car with a random guy. He told me it was a random dude, but he was bad with names, so he didn't know who it was that picked her up. When I asked him again, he told me, yeah, some random guy or Uber picked her up, but I don't know. She was drunk and wanted to leave. And I'm bringing this up because this was on Monday that he told her this. But then on Tuesday, Pasco County, when they got the case from Pinellas, they went to speak with Colin in a non-custodial interview at 6:30 p.m. And it's rather interesting because he told the friend that on Monday, but this is what happened on Tuesday. He said that, him and Kathleen share a romantic relationship and that they had planned to stay at his residence for the night. So Kathleen left her own vehicle at a friend's house in Pinellas County. Colin Knapp told detectives that he and Kathleen Moore arrived at his residence after midnight on the morning of November 29, 2021, and once inside his home, they got into an argument about what to eat. Colin Knapp described that both he and Kathleen Moore were intoxicated, and she got upset and indicated she wanted to leave the residence. Colin Knapp told detectives that he unlocked his vehicle for Kathleen Moore to retrieve her backpack, at which point she left his home on foot in an unknown direction, while he returned inside his residence to play Xbox video games. Colin Knapp estimated this time to be between 12:30 a.m. and 1 a.m. Colin said he did not leave his home after that time and had no information as to Kathleen Moore's whereabouts. So he doesn't tell police what he told the friend. Dumb. This is what I'm talking about. Dumb. So now the story changed, right? Now, I'm sure the person he told, Uber or some random guy picking her up, told police that because they're the one who filed her missing. So now he's telling the police, well, she just, she got her backpack and I don't know, she left my house. I don't know which direction she went. And I don't know, I went and played Xbox games. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And this is why I wondered with this whole 50 yards from his home thing, was he going to try to play when she went on this walk in this unknown direction that somebody a house or two down killed her randomly for no reason and put her in the woods? Nice try, Colin. Nice try. Detective Middleton and Pacheco indicated that while speaking with Colin inside his home, they smelled the odor of cleaning chemicals. Yeah. Colin allowed them to walk throughout the home, and they saw no indication of a struggle and did not observe any cleaning items, but they maintained that strong smell throughout the home. He did allow them access to the entire home with the exception of 2 bedrooms that Colin Knapp said were rented by his roommate. Now, this roommate has been talked about, and people are saying, how did he not hear something, see something, or know something? I don't know if it's been proven 100% that he was even home the night that this happened. It is alarming that he has a roommate, and if that roommate was home, what the hell does the roommate know? Because the police are smelling this odor of cleaning products, and depending on how she died, I find it really hard to believe he wouldn't have heard it. Okay? So I'm rather interested in the roommate, and I'm curious if we're going to see more arrests and charges, but we'll see. I'm not quite sure. And as far as him saying they were both intoxicated, police did say that they had went to a few bars that night. Kathleen's blood alcohol content will probably come back, and we'll know for sure what the level was. Not that that really matters, and we know they visited bars, so it wouldn't be shocking, but I'd be curious to know what the BAC is, and if he was trying to play it like, oh, she was so intoxicated, and it turns out that she really wasn't at the time of her death. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm just curious. Now, listen to what he said about the smell in his home. So they mentioned to Colin that his home smelled very clean. And Colin replied that on the 30th, it was a day off of work for him. And he spent it cleaning because his dog sheds quite a bit. Yeah. Okay. So now remember, he told police, she walked out of the home. I don't know what direction she went. I went inside to play Xbox games, and I didn't leave my house for the rest of the night. Well, police go, and they go to all the homes on Carmel, and they were looking for surveillance footage, and they found cameras, and it was at 2 homes, and it showed that a black Cadillac, which is what he had, was traveling westbound on Carmel on the 29th at 12:15 a.m. The same black Cadillac was again seen traveling westbound on Carmel on the 29th at 12:21 a.m., so 6 minutes later, as if it had circled the block. Now, I imagine that they were probably arguing, and he circled the block again before they got out of the car and went in the home. This is what I'm imagining. And then the black Cadillac was then seen traveling westbound on Carmel on the 29th at 1:20 a.m. So the first 2 line up with what Colin said, but that third time it didn't, because he told them he didn't leave his home again that night. This proved this was not true. And this is when he came up with the whole, I went to my job to do a meat inventory at 1:30 in the freaking fracking morning. This dude is something else. Between what he told a friend, the contradicting story he told to the police compared to the friend, the excuse for why his house, smelled like cleaning products having to do with dog hair. Okay, bro. And then the fact that he told police, oh, I didn't leave my house again, but then he's caught red-handed on camera leaving his home again at 1:20 in the morning. I mean, it's 2021. Doesn't everybody know that a lot of people have surveillance cameras on their homes? A lot of people have Ring cameras. What? Come on. Come on. And then to come up with this excuse of, oh, I went there to do meat inventory at 1:30 in the morning after I had been at all these bars, and then me and my girlfriend were fighting about food, so much so that it made her leave the house. I randomly decided to go do a meat inventory in the middle of me playing some Xbox. Like, bro, you're dumb. Dumb. There was a lot of questions about this Cadillac and his landscaping truck and trailer. And I mentioned in my first video about her that I hope that they searched his landscaping equipment, because I felt like if they had one of those landscaping trailers, that would be an easy way to transport a body because it's enclosed, okay? When they searched his home, they actually did search his vehicle. They didn't take it into custody. So they did search the Cadillac and the landscaping truck and the trailer. Here's the next excuse he gives that's just pathetic. He had an abrasion on his knuckles on the top of his right hand. And he attributed it to falling and bumping it while being upset about an NFL football game that he happened to watch on the 28th, just hours before she disappeared. Then it talks about once being confronted about leaving the home is the meat inventory excuse or explanation. Conflicting statements made by Colin Knapp that were concerning, including one where he claimed that he was too drunk to drive, Kathleen Moore to a McDonald's like she asked him to prior to her leaving on foot, but then he drove to his place of employment. In addition, Colin Knapp said that Kathleen Moore left his home on foot, but also made statements that an unknown person picked her up. It should be noted that detectives did not locate or observe any video footage of Kathleen Moore ever leaving 7149 Carmel Avenue on foot, as Colin Knapp had said she did. And then it says, it talks about her Rugrat sweatshirt and black pants and black shoes. In my last video, I talked about the sheriff saying that they found in their investigation that Colin had put clothing into his work dumpster. And I said that it sounded to me like they actually had footage of him doing this, unless there was a coworker at the job who actually saw him disposing of the clothing and told police. Well, it turns out there was surveillance footage. This is actually kind of comical to me because I've had many jobs before, and every job that had surveillance cameras, I knew exactly where those cameras were. Not because I was looking to do something wrong and so wanted to be aware, but typically you do know where they are if you're an employee. So this to me is comical in the sense that he disposed of a lot, we're going to talk about it, in this dumpster. And he was caught on camera doing it. Bro, are you kidding? So he leaves his home at 1:20. He gets to his job at 1:27 a.m. And he gets to the location driving his black Cadillac, and he parked it near a large dumpster close to a side entrance of the restaurant. It said that the footage was grainy, and it made it difficult to decipher his, specific movements. But they did see him by this dumpster. And then he was seen going inside the restaurant and remained inside for a period of time according to the interior surveillance cameras, and then left the restaurant at 1:53. So, less than 30 minutes. In the footage, Colin Knapp was wearing gray in color pants, a gray shirt, and brown work boots. So then it starts talking about how they took this dumpster and they dumped it at the landfill. It hadn't been picked up, this dumpster, since the beginning of November, so there was a significant amount of, garbage. As you can imagine, this was a dumpster solely for this restaurant. And they started to search for it, and they noticed that there were several large black garbage bags that were different and unlike the other numerous and clear bags. And when they opened the black bags, they found several items that were totally different than any other items that they had observed up until that point in their search. And then at about 1400 hours, Detective Wood contacted the Major Crimes Unit of this discovery. During Detective Wood's search, he ultimately located a black and gray bed comforter with a significant amount of apparent blood on it, a red bed sheet with apparent blood on it, a white mattress cover with a significant amount of apparent blood on it. Detective Wood also found in the black trash bags a Visa card or debit card with the name Kathleen Moore on it, a set of car keys with a maroon in color Yingling beer lanyard attached, a pair of older brown work boots, a gray shirt, men's gray cargo type pants with apparent blood on them, a black woman's bodysuit, a backpack, a light blue in color Rugrats shirt, and 3 different pillowcases, a leopard print pillowcase, a red pillowcase with stripes, and a black and gray patterned pillowcase, amongst other items. All of these items were collected as evidence. The sweatshirt is consistent with the clothing that Kathleen Moore was wearing in the Snapchat video taken the night of her disappearance, and the black bodysuit and backpack are also consistent with the description of clothing she was last seen in. The car keys were later identified as Kathleen's keys to her car. The 3 pillowcases were noted to match pillowcases that had been photographed by forensic investigator Danielle Marinin when searching Colin's home. They then talked about how they did another interview with Colin, and he identified himself in some surveillance footages of him and Kathleen out for the night and what they had been wearing. And then they basically confronted him about these pillowcases that were found, and then said, well, these pillowcases found at the, landfill match the ones that are in your home. And at that point, he became upset. He felt like he was being accused, and he ended the interview and left the building. The next part is really interesting to me, and I'll tell you why in a second, but utilizing a court-authorized tracker that had been placed on his vehicle, detectives were able to follow and track Colin Knapp's movements. Colin Knapp transversed Pasco County to Interstate 75 northbound, then drove north out of the state of Florida. Yeah. This is interesting to me because I'm going to go back to the Gabby Petito case for those of you who were following it with me on this channel. And one of the biggest things with that case was why police were not tracking Brian Laundrie, and why was he allowed to leave his home, not seen by anybody. And the police in that case, Northport police, were like, we can't track residents, blah, 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 blah. And I knew that was, excuse my French, but bullshit, because I've seen in other cases where they track persons of interest, even if they don't publicly name them a person of interest, but it's somebody that they really have an interest in. So when they kept saying this, I was so annoyed, because I'm like, that's just not true. And make a long story short, after Brian Laundrie's remains were found in the Carlton Reserve, we found out that police actually had put up cameras in neighbors' yards of Brian Laundrie's home before he even left the home. And so then it was like, okay, well, you kept saying you can't track him, and I knew that was BS. And now we know you had cameras, so you were definitely lying. Okay, you didn't want him to know that, so I get it. Fine, whatever. But look, they used a court-authorized tracker on his vehicle to track him. They didn't do that in Brian Laundrie's case. And this is not far from one another. That was in Northport, Florida, on the West Coast, and this is in Pinellas County, Newport Richey, on the West Coast. And the story with Brian Laundrie was that he left his home in the Mustang that was in their driveway and drove it to where his remains were found. And then his parents drove it back. So it's like, you guys could have done this. If one county can do it, you can do it too, or at least try to. But let's not even get me on a tangent about that. I just found it interesting that they did it to Colin. They never publicly named Colin a person of interest, and they asked them why. And they basically said, like, well, if you name him a person of interest, he's not going to want to talk, right? They were trying to get him to talk. They didn't want to be like, oh, he's a person of interest, right? But he was a person of interest because he was the last one with her. So if you ever hear a police department in a case saying we can't track residents, that's BS. It's nonsense. They absolutely can. So anyway, then it goes on about this is basically why they want to, arrest him for second-degree murder. Without getting too graphic, when we go back to when they're talking about what they found, and they found, a comforter and a sheet, what stood out to me was, let me get to it. So it says black and gray comforter with a significant amount of apparent blood on it, a red bed sheet with apparent blood on it, a white mattress cover with a significant amount of apparent blood on it. This stood out to me because, blood seeping through, right? And so this tells me there was, obviously significant blood loss, as they had said. But it also makes me wonder how long she was laying on the bed. Because the way it's worded, it sounds like the mattress cover had more blood on it than the sheet. And that the comforter had more blood on it than the sheet. So it sounds to me like she was killed on the bed, and then eventually the comforter was placed over her. And this tells me that's why the mattress cover had more blood than the sheet, and then the comforter had blood on it. I doubt the comforter was underneath the sheet. That doesn't make any sense. Or it's that he possibly wrapped her up in the blanket and the sheet and the mattress cover to transport her body to the wooded area behind his home. I don't know. It can be either or, and that would make sense also why the sheet seemed to have less blood than the comforter and the mattress cover because of the way he wrapped her. Now, there's multiple different things that can cause that amount of blood. Blunt force trauma could, if it's something that she was hit over the head with, if she was possibly beat and then a weapon was used of sorts, obviously a gun, a knife, things like that. And one of the things that actually came to my mind, and I hate to even say it, but it would cause a significant amount of blood, is, think of O.J. Simpson, Nicole Brown Simpson, in the way she was killed. That's an easy way of saying it. You most likely know who I'm talking about and how she was killed. So overall, Colin's, a dumb criminal. I'm saying it again. He's dumb. He's just dumb. This guy had a history. He obviously had anger issues. This was obviously not a good relationship. It seems that she was aware that it was not a good relationship based on her last texts, which are heartbreaking. Just heartbreaking to think that she said that she wished she could find a better guy to be with, or whatever her words were, and then, within 2 hours she's deceased. It's just horrendous. December is a very busy month for me. I've mentioned I have small children. It's Christmas time. Every weekend we go out, see Christmas lights and do Christmas stuff, and I spent 5 days decorating my dang house inside and outside and ordering gifts and getting boxes and wrapping, and it's just crazy, okay? Things are just crazy right now. On top of, I also homeschool. I work part-time for my family's company. I do this. I'm a mom. I'm a wife, etc. And so you may not see me as frequent as I have been doing for this month, so just bear with me. And it's not that I don't want to. Trust me, I do. It's just nonstop. I have so many stories to bring you. I'm hoping that before I even get the chance to bring you the story, that they're resolved. But I'm noticing, and I've been doing this a long time following true crime, but I'm noticing an uptake in the amount of people whose faces are making the social media circuit about being missing. And I don't know if it's because more people are now interested in missing person cases, or people are getting more resourceful about using social media to find their missing loved one. I don't know. I really don't know. But if I showed you my Facebook saved stories, oh my gosh, there's so many, and I just don't have enough time in the day to cover them all. I really freaking wish I did. I also been working on a Murdaugh update for those of you who follow that case. There's a lot going on in that case. Alex Murdaugh is a hot mess, and he gives me a headache. But anyway, back to Kathleen and talking about missing person cases. So 2 nights ago, I think it was the first night I didn't do a video, I'm laying in bed and I see the story of this woman. Now, I think her name is Andrea. It's Andreae with an E at the end. You would normally say Andrea. I think it's Andrea. Lloyd, beautiful young mom, okay, 2 small children, was pregnant, and the story goes that she was going to a night shift at a group home, and she was abducted from the group home, and that this man arrived, started beating on her, kidnapped her. And I'm like, what? What in the hell? Who shows up to this woman's job at a group home and wants her specifically, beats her in front of the group home residents, and then kidnaps her? So, of course, my immediate thought is this has to be a boyfriend, fiance, husband. It had to be somebody who knew her, because it's just such a random crime to happen to show up to her job while she's there and do this. And so I didn't share the story on my podcast social medias. I shared it on my personal account because I was in bed, it was late, and I have to click like all these different things to get to my other accounts. And so I just shared it on my personal. And I meant to go back the next day and share it. But by the time I was going to do that, more information was coming out, and it was definitely not anything that anybody wants to hear. And ultimately, her body was found, and she is deceased as well. And this was in Homestead, which looks to be out of the South Florida area, just below Miami. And I don't know every little detail and the ins and outs of this case. What I know is this was a beautiful young woman. She had a lot of actually resemblances to Kathleen. She's a mom. She has 2 young kids, and she was 8 weeks pregnant. And what her father said was that the baby that she was pregnant with was not her boyfriend's, and that she had intentions of breaking up with him. So, yeah, motive. So it turns out that he ended up confessing to killing her, and they actually found her in a metal box. Horrible, horrible. So today, I see her story come up again. And it was a post by somebody, some random, I don't even know where it came from. I think somebody shared it in a group that I'm in, and it caught my attention. As it turns out, this boyfriend, his sister killed her boyfriend in 2018. She shot him dead. And his sister is out on bond, living her life. Okay? And now he goes and kills his girlfriend and the mother of his children. Are you freaking kidding me? No, I'm not. I'm really not. When I read it, I was like, there's no way I'm reading this right. But no, I was reading it right. Him and his sister both have killed people they were dating. What? Are you kidding me right now? Now, he has no bond, and he's in jail. So this other family of the man who was killed by the sister, they're pissed off because they're like, whoa. This girl shot and killed our loved one, and she's out on bond. He kills her, Andrea, and he gets no bond. Now, different jurisdictions, different areas, etc. But you can understand their anger, right? Because it's like, how is this even possible right now? But these siblings who have killed human beings, who took human beings from the people that loved them and who they loved, senselessly, makes me wonder what their life was like growing up, that these 2 individuals who were siblings could do something so horrific. Which made me think that there's this possibility that they witnessed domestic violence during their period of growing up, that it almost became normal, and then they did the same thing to their significant others. But ultimately, they killed them, and not just mentally, verbally, physically assaulted them and abused them. Am I making an excuse for them? Hell no. I am not making an excuse for them. But what I'm saying is that I think domestic violence has in some ways and in some households become almost a normal thing. And there are far too many people out there stuck in domestic violence relationships. And I'm sharing Andrea's story along with Kathleen's because this is your opportunity to get the hell out. I know it's scary, I know it's dangerous, and I know the most dangerous period of a domestic violence relationship is when you decide to leave. But your life matters. You cannot allow it to end in a body bag. You got to get out. You don't deserve it. It's not okay. Your life matters. So, I'm telling you, if you're listening to me and you're like, oh, well, I'm in a domestic relationship, but I don't think it's gonna result in my death. You're wrong. You're wrong. Okay? Don't think it won't happen to you. Reach out to me. You don't have to share your name or anything. I will get you connected to people who can help you and get you out safely. Don't wait. Don't push it off. If you know somebody in a domestic violence situation, help them. Help them any way possible. There are so many resources out there. This has got to end. This is horrific. This is 2 out of God knows how many people who are laying their murdered loved ones to rest 2 weeks before Christmas. And for what? For what? What argument could be so bad to end in your death? What situation can be so worse? It's senseless. It's avoidable. It doesn't have to happen. It just doesn't. No relationship is that important. No relationship is worth your life. In Kathleen's story, she does have a child that she was in communication with, even though she had been adopted. That girl also lost her biological mother, and that's terrible to have to grapple with as a teenager, okay? She'll never have any form of relationship with her now. In the story of Andrea, she has 2 small, beautiful children and was going to have another little baby. And she's gone. She's gone. And those kids are so young, they may never even remember her. They're so young. And their father is in jail now. So now they don't have a mother and they don't have a father. Nothing is worth that. Nothing. I'm going to include Andrea's pictures in here because her life matters, and I want to bring awareness to domestic violence. My condolences also go out to her family. It's just beyond words. Back to Kathleen for a moment here, because I have a personal relationship with someone whose child killed several people. And I so often see in the true crime community when these stories unfold where people go to blame the parents of the person who committed a horrific act. And when it's a teenager, I can understand that. Like, for example, the story of the Michigan Oxford shooter whose parents was recently arrested as basically aiding him in some way and supplying him with a gun. And even though I believe that our upbringing does play a role, not the entire role, but some role in how we become as adults, ultimately, once you are an adult, especially if you're 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 plus, you are your own person, and your horrific acts are not the fault of your parents. So when this friend of mine, when their child did something terrible, the public blamed her and his father. But he was in his 30s at the time. That's not their fault. Why am I saying this? Because we've heard little to nothing about Colin Knapp's parents. I don't know what type of people they are. I don't know if they had any involvement in his life, if they're alive, if they are standing behind him. I haven't heard anything yet. I'm sure we will eventually. And I want people to not only keep Kathleen's friends and family in your thoughts and prayers, but I also want you to think about being the parents of Colin Knapp. If they're alive, if they're a part of his life, I don't know. But if they are, imagine what they're feeling, and keep them in your thoughts too. And I know that sounds crazy that I'm telling you to keep this guy who did this awful thing, his parents, in your thoughts. But it's not an easy thing for parents of any child at any age doing something like this. You become stunned, shocked, disturbed, appalled, and yes, sometimes you even don't want to believe it, and you will defend your child to your last breath, because it's so hard to accept that your child, no matter the age, could do something so terrible like taking someone's life. What he did is not their fault, and there's another family out there who is, again, if they're alive, I don't even know. But there may be another family out there who is struggling right now and may feel so terrible but don't know how to address it. And I'm saying this because I want you to keep that in mind with other cases as well. We should not be quick to blame parents of suspects. And we need to consider how, shocking and heartbreaking it is for them as well. Us parents out here, we're trying to do the best we can, right? We raise our kids, we get up every night, we lose sleep, we, try everything to feed and bathe and keep a roof over their head and make sure that we make, good citizens. But once they're adults and they go out on their own, you have no control over them anymore, right? And we do the best we can, and then we hope for the best. But you never stop being a parent. To you, that child, even if they're 35 years old, is still 4 years old in your mind. I mean, for Pete's sake, you wiped their ass at one point. They probably puked on you, for goodness sake, right? So, it's very hard. And this relationship that I have with this person has really opened my eyes to this and gave me a different perspective. And so when I see these cases, I have a little bit of a different view about the parents of these people. And you may have heard me talking about Brian Laundrie's parents when we were discussing the Gabby Petito's story, and it seemed like maybe I was defending them. I wasn't defending them. I was trying to give a different perspective on all these other possibilities, because I think there were too many people who were quick to judge and accuse and do all these other things to the parents based on emotion and not actual facts. And I'm hoping that people stop being less reactive. So reactive. I'm getting tired. So I just wanted to make that point real quickly. Now, that being said, if Colin Knapp's parents are terrible people, that's a different conversation. I'm just saying, if you do start to see discussions about his parents and they raised a monster and it's all their fault, please remember he is 30. He's a grown man. They didn't make him do what he did. They didn't, or they weren't there that night. And just consider that they too are totally heartbroken and stunned and just beside themselves. I'm very grateful for my relationship with this person because it really, really helped me to see things from the other side. We so often see the victim side and the victims' families, and that's the way it should be, right? That we forget that these suspects have families as well. And it's not the same kind of heartbreak, obviously. It's different, but it's heartbreak nonetheless. And that doesn't go for everybody, but it goes for some of these cases. So that's it. I'm tired. I'm done. We are going to continue to follow Kathleen's story to the very end, and that could be some time. The court process takes a while, and we can be looking at a good deal of time to see it to its full conclusion, unless, of course, there's a plea deal of sorts. Usually they'll do a hearing where they will formally charge him. Then you have a plea hearing where they enter a guilty or not guilty. And then they do a preliminary hearing where they basically go over evidence to see if there's enough to go to trial if he doesn't take a plea deal of sorts. To be quite honest with you, with the amount of evidence they have, just what we've seen, I'm sure there's more, he would be wise to take that plea deal. And just let it be done and over with, because it's rather clear what happened and who did it. And we will be finding out exactly every detail of what happened at a further date. Sooner we will be hearing about the cause of death and get a better understanding of what led to this. Kathleen's story matters, and I want to tell it, and I also want to use it to save other people. And I think that there's no point in discussing these cases once there's a conclusion as far as a suspect being arrested and a body being found, if we're not going to use it for good. She can't be saved, but somebody else can be, right? I'm not going to make any promises on videos because, like I said, December is crazy for me. But I'm definitely going to get my Murdaugh video out soon. I promise. There's just so much. There's a lot. Okay? And I do have a story I want to bring you tomorrow night if that person is not found before I get to it. We will see. Until next time, I'll see you soon.